Hey, everybody. Welcome back to ACL. We are without our L, perhaps permanently, but we've got our A. Alex Deimel up there. We've got the Lions poster behind him going full Detroit, baby. Oh, shoot. My Pistons thing fell down. We've got your C, Christian Peck-Dimit. Luke Morey is gone for now. And hopefully it doesn't fall down again because that would be really loud mid-episode. Detroit Pistons, despite the fact that I'm wearing a Jimmy Butler jersey, shout out to the man in his MCL. He's done so for tonight's game as far as when this will be released on Friday. Might not look so great for Miami's chances come this playoff finale or finale in the East, but we've got a ton to talk about. We've got Bryce Simon coming in.
Hell yeah.
Name a Pistons podcast or a blog. We just finished up the interview. Alex heard me list everything that he does, and I did some digging to get everything. He
Yeah,
does
holy shit. It
super
was unreal.
super busy guy, but a super knowledgeable guy as well. Awesome interview. We'll talk to him in just a little bit. In the meantime, we've got a lot of Detroit sports to talk. The Tigers have been coming down to earth a little bit. I know it's got Alex irked. The Pistons and their season as well, and the Red Wings are sort of on their way to doing the same. We're going to talk about that after the Bryce Simon interview, which will come in just a few minutes. Welcome, Bryce, to the ACL show. But for the time being, oof, and the Tigers, after starting 6-0, being the last undefeated team left in the MLB, have not looked so great since they dropped a battle on Thursday to the Rangers. And man, it looked for a minute watching that game like they went run for run and just couldn't do it at the end.
Yeah, but man, here's the problem. You cannot make 3 errors in a game and expect to win. You cannot make 3 fielding errors in a game and expect to win. You can't
Been
go
true all
down
week.
whatever the hell it was, like 4-0 or yeah, what 4-0 in the second and expect to win. Luckily, the offense was able to bail Kenta Maeda out. He is looking to be fraudulent so far. Yes, it's early in the season. Give it time, whatever. It's also 3 starts, and we've seen nothing but just meatballs. So I don't know what the deal is there. And I guess, yes, there's the whole coming down to earth thing. And no, nobody expected this team to be like a 100-win season team. But for the love of fucking God, you cannot make 3 errors in one game.
That's been true
You can't expect to
all
win and
week.
have that.
Yeah, that Thursday game, it wasn't pretty. The fielding, neither was it earlier this week when they had a couple of errors as well. And it's sort of odd. They started the season with a little bit of an asterisk because it was only, 12 or 15 games. They were, I believe it was either the first or the second best team fielding percentage-wise, and that tanked fast. It got ugly bad this series, and yeah, it's led to what has been now the Tigers, since starting 6-0, are 4-9 over their last 13 games. If you had to pinpoint something, obviously the fielding has been ugly the last few games, but what do you think helps turn this corner in the bad way for the Tigers to get them where they are right now?
It's one of those crazy things. And just I guess, a bit of a disclaimer, you're going to see a grumpy man rant because I had this today and the Wings earlier this week. I am not in a happy mood. I'm as pissed off as that lion behind me right now. I've had, and it's also so early in the Tiger season. But my big thing is you can't you have to have one come with the other. You can't have great pitching and then not hit. You can't have great hitting and then your pitching just throws up. And then when you have both, your fielding goes to shit. And it seems, a problem forever. I will say the one caveat is Kerry Carpenter doing what Kerry does best. I mean, he's already at 3 homers this year. I want to say he's at 2 triples too already, which, I mean, this far into the season it seems becoming a bit more normal, but I mean, like 10 years ago, you weren't seeing anything like that. Hitting starting to catch up more than I thought it would. And I mean, Schools look fucking great. I mean, he's really, kind of, I guess, going back on my, or at least helping my Cy Young predictions. He's got like a 2.2 ERA right now. He's looked great. He didn't have a great start against Texas. That first inning was a little rough, but again, it was due to fielding errors. And I get it, Colt Keith's young and he's going to take time, but Spencer Torkelson has been there for the last 2, 3 years now. If this keeps up, send him to AAA. He's got options left. Send him down there so the guy can learn to catch. Oh man, I don't know what's going on. I did just see something false, but we're not going to talk about that.
Is that Pistons
Um,
poster? Yep. That I thought was
that
going to
it
fall.
might be a, if we're once you listen to the interview with Bryce, you'll see that that's kind of just a testament to the Pistons season right now.
That's
But
true.
no, again, it's early. They're still a winning record. It's not like they're out of the conversation, but it has just been very frustrating baseball to watch recently. And yes, the Rangers are a good team, but they have played far less than perfect. And there have definitely been yesterday and today were perfectly winnable games if we don't just make stupid mistakes. And I get it, like it's gonna happen, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating.
If you can't tell, Alex, is having exactly what he mentioned. Not the greatest week of all time, sports wise.
Nope.
It's times like these that you like to send a quick memory back, send the old mind to the Lions. And this season's Lions in Michigan have just given me enough hope to drag me through here this spring. Tigers, like we said, are sitting at 10-9 right now, and the trouble is that shouldn't be an issue in the AL Central, but it kind of is right now. The Royals are seemingly putting it all together. I'm living out here in Kansas, and I've got to cover them for my full-time job. They're looking really good. The Guardians sitting at 13-6, 12-7 for the Royals. Does it worry you at all, or is it sort of just long season, they'll come back down to earth like the Tigers have?
It's too early to tell. I mean, obviously, like I think I saw the Twins playing much better originally than I thought. I did not think they'd be at 6-11 at this point. But again, it's early. It's really early. I think they're still in that hunt. They're in that mix. My biggest thing is no, this is not a World Series team, and it's going to take a while to get rid of the just awfulness, just terrible team that was Al Avila's Tigers. It's not going to be a 1 year fix, and I think they're definitely in that direction. If you would have told me 2 years ago that we would have, looked at least halfway decent this year, it'd be great. Even Javi looked good today, but like
He's looked good the
it's
last
not.
few games, to be honest.
Let's not give him too much grace yet. There's a lot of season left. I haven't seen enough, bottom, outside of the strike zone swings and misses for it to really be a hobby season yet. But yes,
Yes.
he's been hitting the ball pretty well recently. Again, like it's frustrating baseball to watch. It's early on, and I feel like unfortunately that's just going to be it's going to become my slogan until about June, July when we start to see how this team can really play. Um, bullpen has been looking okay. It was not a great showing today, but weren't expecting to go out in the fourth inning, so we shall see. I mean, we knew it. It was a great start at 6-0. Obviously, it had to come down to earth at some point, but it's still not an excuse for making 3 errors in a game. It's just not.
That's fair. And you know what? At the end of the day, Alex, like me, has to take his own advice from just about a week ago. Deep breath. It's all right. Tigers will lose series and get crushed in series the same way they will win and crush in series. Right now, sitting at a -4 run differential, negative run differential right now, unlike the Royals and the Guardians, who are +37 and +40. But hopefully that all equals out with time. I know the Royals have a couple of series coming up where they could get shelled a little bit. Moving over now to the NBA, because we do have Bryce Simon coming on in a little bit. We mentioned all of the things he does, not only for the Pistons, but for NBA media in general. Very knowledgeable, and we got his thoughts really on basically everything. And there is a lot to talk about because the play-in has begun. Sixers secured themselves with a win over the Heat, the 7 seed in the East, which means they'll play the Knicks in the first round in what should be a really fun matchup. Over in the West, same thing. 7, 8 teams have played already. Lakers beat the Pelicans, who are going to be suffering without Zion. Pelicans will now play against the Kings in what is that sort of second round type of play-in game for the 8 seed. 7 seed is the Lakers playing the Nuggets. And I don't know, Lakers gave the Nuggets a ton of trouble, really, in their meeting last playoff series a season ago. So I'm sort of interested to see how the rest of these play-in games shake out. But as we'll talk about with Bryce, the Heat are going to suffer without Jimmy Butler, which is the jersey I'm wearing right now. Shout out to the man. And same thing over in the West. The Pelicans are going to struggle without Zion, but without further ado, we've got Bryce Simon. We are here with a former D1 basketball player, American, I think, University, Motor City Hoops writer and runner, the whole show. We've got the Pistons Pulse co-host. We've got the Game Theory co-host. You're right. Do you still write for Basketball Bulletin as well? And on top of all of those things, somehow also a football coach, local high school here in Kansas, believe it or not. The Pistons man is a Kansas local. And all of those things together on top of a full-time job and 3 kids. We've got Bryce Simon with us.
Well, that's like the most complimentary intro I've ever got. So I got to keep coming back on this podcast. That's making me feel good, a little boost to the ego. Yeah, I got a lot of things going, but I love all of it. This content creation world is a passion project for me. So I get to write, I get to podcast, I get to talk NBA, basketball in general. And yeah, it's kind of funny. I don't coach basketball anymore because of that. But because of the seasons, I get to still coach football. So that keeps me involved with coaching in that way. So I'm excited to be here, talk Detroit Pistons. I was telling you guys, please do not ask me, Alex, about any hockey or anything like that, because then I will make myself look like a fool. But yeah, I'm excited to talk with you guys.
Yeah, I can promise you no hockey. I think you also saying that was a little bit of a ego boost to Christian for his intro skills, which he killed that one for sure. But thanks for coming on, man. We're happy to have you. And
Yeah.
I promise no hockey talk.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Now, obviously mentioned in that intro, you are a Kansas local, and I think I remember you telling me never have really lived in Michigan either. Is that right?
No, that's 100% right. I grew up in Kansas, a little small town, and 30 miles from where I live now. I went to school JUCO at Pratt, which is in Kansas. My only 3 years of life outside of Kansas was when I went to American. 2 years as a player, 1 year of director of basketball operations. So other than that, little small towns in Kansas has been my whole life. The Pistons connection is super random, super out of nowhere. Never thought it would take me to where I'm at now and what I'm doing now. But yeah, I cover the Pistons from Southwest Kansas.
First off, didn't know you were a Pratt guy. Good to know. Are we at Jucanese levels up here?
Yes.
The other thing I was wondering, and we've talked about this a little bit before off the air, but talk to me about that whole process of, obviously it was sort of a background. It was a teammate, I think it was,
Yeah.
that you said, right? Got you into the Pistons world. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, sure. So a former teammate at American, his wife was from Michigan, so that's where he spent his off seasons. He was originally from Romania, so there's a whole story with him as well. But he got a chance during COVID, whenever COVID was really at its height, to join this podcast network that was trying to cover all 30 teams. So he got that opportunity. He chose the Pistons because of that Detroit connection. He did one episode and he's like, "Hey, you want to come co-host?" And I was like, "Sure, why not? I want to talk NBA. Like we're all locked down in COVID. What else are we doing anyway?" And so I joined. Guys, God's honest truth, I knew like 3 players on the team. Like I wasn't even an NBA guy in December of 2020 when this started. I was a college basketball guy. I was, coaching, doing all of that stuff, and I just fell in love with it. And that became writing for the Detroit Bad Boys, which put the podcast on there. He eventually left, so I ran it solo. That became Asking Omari Sankofa II. So I'm sure, people are familiar with the Detroit Free Press. He's their beat writer. I was like, "Hey, you want to be my co-host?" He was like, "Yeah." So he took it to the Free Press, and the Free Press was like, "No, no, no. we want it to be our podcast. We want you guys to like, we want to start one here. So now that's what the Pistons Pulse is, it's brought to you by the Free Press. And then that became NBA draft stuff. And then, a few months ago, I got on, Game Theory with Sam Vecini of The Athletic. And it's just been one thing to the, and you mentioned the basketball bulletin. That's one of the coolest things I get to do. That's with Keith Smith and Trevor Lane, who are, they have one of the biggest podcasts in NBA, the Front Office Show. And I got to be a guest on that recently as well. So it's been quite the ride, and not one I expected that I was going to get to take.
On this ride, do you have a favorite thing that you get to do, or maybe a favorite part of it?
Yeah. So like I said, there's some bucket list things like that. Like the basketball, the Front Office Show was really cool to get to go on there. We've got to interview members of the front office. We've got to interview some players. I'll tell you what the coolest part is Summer League. Summer League is absolutely the coolest part. So this will be I've already booked my flights, because there's so much access at Summer League, and you get to just walk around with all of these media people. And like last year I got introduced to Shams and front office people and all of these other media people, like you just get to walk around and interact with these people. And then when I go to these things, I get credentialed. So I go to a Pistons game, I get credentialed. So I'm in the media room. I'm sitting courtside before the game during warmups, all of those things. I'll go to a Nuggets game every year. That was the only Pistons game I caught live this year. So I'm there courtside watching Jokic walk in and out to warm up, all of those things. So that's been some of the coolest stuff. Just the people I've got to meet and interact with is pretty cool.
That really is awesome. And you mentioned,
unreal.
Yeah, it really is. Talking to all these front office guys. There was some front office news, literal front office with the Pistons. I think it was a couple of days ago now. Pistons keeping Troy Weaver. A, were you surprised by that? B, your thoughts on it?
So I do want to give that a caveat. I believe Troy Weaver's people probably asked Shams or Woj to put that out. My understanding is that the president of basketball operations will have their choice on what to do essentially with everything that goes on here.
So that's not
my understanding.
Is this like reversing the one and the only Woj, or am I missing something?
No. I think
Okay.
if you read Woj's words like very, very clearly, it's like Troy Weaver's keeping his job for now. Like his job is for now, whatever. I assume Troy Weaver will stay, but my understanding is if they hire a president of basketball operations that there's not a, cohesion there, whatever, that, maybe Troy maybe want, whatever. Like my understanding is the president of basketball operations is going to really have a lot of say in the direction of this organization moving forward. So I do feel like the Woj tweet was a tad, I don't want to say misleading, but it's like, yeah, his job is safe now, but that could be reevaluated when they hire this new person in this new position that is above Troy Weaver, by my understanding.
So then the other side of that, we've talked before about how sort of fickle maybe, or one-sided, jumping all over the place that Pistons Twitter can be. But Troy Weaver on Pistons Twitter, or at least parts of it, has come under fire a lot. Really over the last few years, but it's a lot. I think maybe this is just me. I've seen more this year, him really getting critiqued on moves and the product he's putting out on the court. Your thoughts then? Let's say hypothetically he does end up staying another season. How do you feel about that and the job he's done?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say is, Twitter is an amazing space. Can be an amazing space, but it can also be a crazy space,
Yep.
right? And yeah, you know this, guys. But I think with Troy Weaver, it's probably rightfully so. Like as you were saying those things, I'm like, yeah, he should be under scrutiny right now. This thing for the first couple of years, we gave him a pass. Break it down, create flexibility, draft some real talent. I even give him a little bit of a pass for his first draft. Like it's the first one, like Killian Hayes, obviously a bust. Sadiq Bey, he ends up trading, we can get into that whole thing and, that move in general. But, he did take Cade Cunningham. Like he didn't screw that one up. That was the consensus number one. He stayed with it. Thoughts on Ivy, Duran, Asar, all of that. Point being, I think this was the first year the fan base really thought this team was going to be successful, and it was the worst year of all. And we really saw where he hasn't been able to build this thing out, guys. Like he hasn't been able to put the right pieces in place. And so what I've said is did the moves at the trade deadline make you feel like he's learned his lesson? Because there were colossal mistakes made in the offseason about building this roster. Did the moves at the deadline and has the plan he presented to the front office moving into the offseason, does that make you think he's learned his lessons? If it doesn't, then he should be fired. Do not let him run this offseason. If he has found a way to get that trust and that belief, then maybe you give him another offseason. I kind of like what they're doing, where they're bringing in somebody from the outside and saying, hey, evaluate this thing and find us a path moving forward.
Hey, that's an interesting way to look at it. I do like that sort of, and essentially at the end of the day, you're right. It is sort of a third party or someone new to the organization, at least that gets to make that call. Another part of Pistons Twitter that was sort of two-sided was preseason expectations. I remember in a football field in Western Kansas prior to game time, we were talking just before the season started about there are people expecting play-in. There are people expecting, frankly, what we got, which was terrible. I remember you were sort of feeding over to that second side, the worst part of the ladder that the Pistons are hoping to climb. But how overall does this season stack up against your expectations? Obviously, there were a wide range.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were going to be better than this. I didn't think play in, but I thought there would at least be improvement. There were factors in that. The roster was not built right. And, even some things like, I know people don't want to hear the injury thing, but, Monte Morris played how many ever games, like 9 games. He actually would have he did what this team needed. Like, he makes threes and he doesn't turn the ball over. You know what this team is really bad at? Making threes and turning the ball over. And so having a veteran that does those things on the other side would have been positive, and we never really saw that play out. So I think one thing is, I feel like we saw how good Cade Cunningham can be. I'm not saying he's all the way there, but I feel like we did learn a little bit about him. I felt like the organization learned a little bit about what you need to put around this team, like guys that can space the floor. Simone Fontecchio, like how good he looked after the trade, I think speaks to what this team was missing. But we learned a little bit about Jaden Ivey's deficiencies and maybe where his role is. We learned some things about Jalen Duren. So I think just in general, they did learn some things, but most importantly, the path that they were on was not right. Like, they need to reevaluate it. I think there is a path forward to this team and organization getting to a positive place, but it needs adjusted, and it's the margin for error isn't as much as what you would want.
Now, here's my question, just as I guess looking kind of more on the outside in it, it does seem like you've talked about a lot of the roster restructuring just wasn't going to plan. And it seems like it's been for the past couple of years, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of really just sticking with the draft, kind of building up a young core,
Sure,
not really going out as getting as many veterans or anything like that.
Yes.
Do you think in the future we could see a bit of a switch of that, where maybe he does go out and get a couple of vets that are, known ballers rather than, or are we going to kind of keep going through like the rookie pipeline and, seeing a lot of these just kind of draft capital build up?
No, I think you're right, Alex. And I think that's what one lesson they learned is, like, they should have used $20 million instead of on trading for Joe Harris's expiring contract and getting a couple second round picks. Maybe they should have got a dude that could actually play. Right. And so I think, I'm not saying the young talent all fits together. I'm not saying it's all going to grow together, but I think there's enough young talent that it's time to start bringing in the guys that make it fit. Those veteran guys, like you said, that can really play, that can really help this team grow. You're going to have another top 5 pick anyway. So that's going to happen organically. I don't know that there's enough spots right now to develop all of these young guys. I mean, I named the 4 earlier. I didn't even say Isaiah Stewart or Marcus Sasser, and then you're drafting another one. That's 7 guys I've named in the last 4 drafts or whatever it is. You can't play 7 guys, it's just not going to work. I wonder, actually, Alex, if some of them get moved. Like, I would not be surprised, whether it's the pick, whether it's a couple of the young guys currently on, I would not be surprised if they say, like, hey, let's consolidate some of these, and then they have an absorbent amount of cap space to go get some guys as well, even though the free agent market isn't flush with game changers either.
It's sort of interesting. You're hitting exactly what my thoughts kind of developed into on Weaver this season. Was he made a lot of moves where if you read the tweet or if you looked up payroll and sort of compared afterwards, you went, that sort of looks nice on paper, or freed ourselves up some more cap. or we did this, we grabbed an expiring contract, we got this, young potential, or we grabbed more draft capital. And then you watch a couple games and you're like, oh, the product we're putting on the court is terrible. And I think there was just no in between where it's like, oh, this looks nice, but it looks bad.
Well, Sam Vecini said it best one time when we were talking about it on Game Theory. He goes, it's been a death by a million cuts, is what it's been. And I kind of get labeled. I'm kind of a positive guy in general. Maybe this episode hasn't really shown that, but in general, I would say most people see me, of content creators in the Pistons, Twitter world, whatever, as the optimist, like the positive, try to put a positive spin on things. And it was easy to do that with Weaver's moves. It's like, oh, he gave Marvin Bagley too much money, but it's not really that big of a hindrance, right? Like, it's not going to crush you. Oh, they made this trade. Oh, they could have drafted this guy and like everyone was, you could see some questions with it, but it's like, it doesn't just change the trajectory of the organization. The problem is, guys, as we got to all of it, it ends up with where we got. And that's in a not a very good place. And so, like, I think this was the first year realization for me where it's like, man, the process of all of this has not been good and it needs to change.
I think you are probably right, Bryce. We spent plenty of time being very negative of the Pistons, and we'll try to get here out of the locker of not only the conference, but the league here. And of course, the play-in is sort of halfway done here, and we've got the playoffs right on the horizon. Your thoughts here on those play-in games?
Wow.
I think predictions get a little bit easier with Zion and Butler now out. And I just saw Terry Rozier, I believe, out as well for Friday night. But thoughts on how the play-in has gone so far? Anything maybe surprising? Obviously, Golden State sort of is checking the time of death on their dynasty, but we're shaking out, I think, to have some nice first-round matchups.
Yeah, so I think if you would have asked me, I would have picked the Lakers over the Pelicans, and then I would have picked the Warriors over the Kings, and then the Warriors over the Pelicans. And so Sacramento King fans would have hated me, and they would have been right, because as we record on Thursday evening, I think the Kings are going to win that game. And I like the Pelicans. Zion, guys, was playing out of his mind. It was the best game we've ever seen from him. And then you could tell as soon as it happened, he knew that something was wrong. So you give the Pelicans a chance, obviously, in a one game, but gosh dang, the Kings look good in that game against the Warriors. They're battling their own injuries as well, too. So that's one reason why I wasn't as confident in them. Sixers, put together a tough, hard-fought win over the Heat. That's who I thought was going to win. I thought they'd win easier than what they did, but they found a way. Nick Batum with an incredible, performance. And then the Bulls just keep hanging around. We all said they should have fire sold at the deadline and traded off DeRozan and Caruso and all of these guys. And they put it to the Hawks last night. I think if you made me choose right now, I'd probably choose the Bulls to beat the Heat without Butler, without Rozier. And, and then their front office can all tell us that they were right. And, they're probably going to get swept in the first round by the Celtics. But, they got into the playoffs, I guess, if it plays out like that.
We do picks of the week here on the show, and I was going to put you on the spot and make you make a pick here, but the lines are basically even. Miami -1.5 and Sacktown -1. I'm assuming, you're just taking the spread there.
Yeah. So Sacramento, and then what was the Eastern spread?
Bulls were actually the underdogs here. Miami's -1.5 even after Rozier.
Yeah, so well. I would take the picks I made there. I'm not much of a gambler, so sometimes that stuff gets confusing for me. But yeah, I think based off how I understand it, I would take both of my picks, right? Because
good.
Just a 1 point. I'm just giving 1 point with Sacramento, correct? Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm keeping Sacramento, and then if I think the Bulls are going to win, then the odds are already. Yeah. So I'm good. I get a 1.5 on that one.
Yeah. We won't make you bet. We won't make anyone. Usually they get to lose money on our picks, but we'll make them lose money on yours.
I'm the loser that goes to Vegas for Summer League and doesn't spend any money. Like, I do not, I stay out of the casino. I go from Thomas and Mack to the hotel to dinner, and that's it. So.
Yeah, and we always, again, gamble responsibly. If you have a problem, call the gambling hotline. We are not forcing anybody to take our picks, just throwing that in there because it seems like the necessary thing nowadays. Probably should.
Yeah. We also talked actually about a week ago about how the top of the West would shake out. And if it really may matter at the end of the day, because you still, I think you said you like the Nuggets out of the West, but I think we're set to have some great matchups, especially I'm sort of eyeing Clippers Mavericks. What matchups here early in the playoffs sort of intrigue you the most?
Yeah, that one's big. The Mavericks are dangerous here, and of course, this probably means the Clippers will end up winning. But not knowing what Kawhi's health is going to be, Luka has been incredible. I think Kyrie has had an underrated season for the Mavs. He has been awesome. He has been really good, and those trade deadline additions for them have worked out well for them here in the regular season. We'll see how it turns out in the playoffs. I think the Nuggets probably handle the Lakers. Like, I'll just continue to give the Nuggets the benefit of the doubt. I have no idea what to think of the Timberwolves Sun series. Like, I have just no clue. I mean, the Suns have the 3 stars. The Timberwolves, does Anthony Edwards show up? They have the size. Neither of those teams I don't trust either of those offenses in the fourth quarter. So that will be fascinating. And then the Thunder, right? Like, the Thunder are the most fun team to watch in the NBA for me. They've also haven't been here. Like, so we don't know what to expect. And that Kings team, again, looked really good the other night, shot the heck out of the ball. Sabonis is going to be a problem on the boards for them if that is the matchup, right? If it's the Pelicans, it'd be the same thing with Valanciunas. So I think I recorded something for a different podcast the other day. I picked the Kings to win on Friday, and then I think I picked the Thunder in 6 for that recording in the first round. So I gave the Kings a couple wins, just floor spacing, being able to really shoot the ball and maybe get some stuff on the boards, because the Thunder do struggle with the rebounding.
And then over in the Eastern Conference, maybe not as great of a first round, a set of first round matchups. You could still potentially have Heat Celtics continuation of that rivalry. Sixers Knicks, I think, should be really good.
Yeah.
But same sort of question over here. Very top heavy conference. And you said you got Boston coming out of here, I think.
Yeah.
What's most intriguing to you over here in the East?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just taking Boston all the way. Like, they were historically good in the regular season, guys. I did some net rating stuff and went back, and how many games I went back 30 years, I think, and nobody has won their conference by more games than what the Celtics won by this year. And a lot of the teams that had won it by 10 or more, I think all but one ended up winning the NBA championship. So net rating stuff, all of that, just a historically good regular season team. I kind of feel bad for the Knicks guys, like, because I might pick the Sixers in that series because Joel Embiid's so good, but I love what the Knicks have done. Jalen Brunson's really good. The Bucks Pacers is probably the interesting one, right? Because if Giannis is going to miss, I would guess at least 2 games. If Halliburton gets healthy, because that hamstring has obviously hindered him a little bit recently. But if the Pacers get right, I think they could knock him off. Dame hasn't really found his footing, at least in the regular season. And then, like, I don't mean to be the old man, but I kind of hate what the Cavs did. Like, that kind of annoys me that they just tanked that last game so that they could avoid whatever. And so I kind of want the upstart Magic to knock them off just because of that. And it's like, I don't even
That's fair.
dislike the Cavs. Like, I like Donovan Mitchell, Mobley. I like them all. I'm really annoyed. I get very frustrated with the whole lose to get this match. People were talking about the Lakers purposely losing on whatever day to the Pelicans so that they could avoid Denver and get Oklahoma City in the first round. I was like, that pissed me off so much. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on this podcast, so I'm holding it in.
Absolutely.
I'm a teacher, so I can't, but I want to so bad. It made me even the idea, Alex, of it happening made me so mad. What, you could end up not in the playoffs. Like, what if you lose and then lose the next one?
It just takes out so much integrity, and
Yes.
it's like what and I'm sorry, like, obviously, like, LeBron is LeBron, he's one of the best. You're telling me a team with LeBron James on it was going to purposely drop a game to avoid. That's just like, where's competitiveness at that point?
Well, you know what? It's not 1-1, but they just gave a lifetime ban to Jonte Porter for purposely losing games or not playing or whatever. But then we're going to encourage guys to do it. And I realize it's different context. Like, one is for money, one's for standing. Listen, I played Division I, not even close to the NBA. I played in 2 NCAA tournaments, though. I never once in my competitive life as a player or coach thought about losing again. Now, like, did I look at the standings? Sure. Did I go, man, this Holy Cross team that's been injured all year is going to be a really tough 8 seed and they almost upset us in the first round? Sure. Did we think about purposely losing? There wasn't a mention of it. Like, it just, if it's actually in dude's blood to do that, the things have changed. I just don't even believe the players actually would even consider it.
It
But
would blow, I would really hope not, and it would blow my mind just because at that point, like, you've been working so hard all season.
yes,
But what at that point, what's the point of the regular season if you're going to purposely drop games to get in this playoff spot? Like, I don't know. I just hope this doesn't leak into other sports because it drives me crazy enough at that it would. I don't know. I don't know. There are no words to like categorize just how annoying that is, and especially as like a fan, when you want to watch a team compete, you're kind of like, okay, you're basically admitting that one team is better than you, but you would have to play them a bit. I don't know. I don't know.
well, it's like what the Cavs did. Essentially, they told themselves, we're scared of the Sixers. Well, even if you beat the Magic, then you're going to have to go play the Celtics. Like, you should be terrible. Like, they actually hurt themselves of getting to the conference finals by doing what they did. Here's the other thing. What if the Lakers purposely lose that game? Excuse me. And then LeBron rolls his ankle in the first quarter of what would be the Friday night game. And then you lose that. Like, or what if Jokic rolls an ankle and misses 3 games in the Nuggets series? Now the Lakers are the favorites. Like, it's just, you can't, listen, I don't know what people believe in. Like, I say basketball gods, not like in a real literal term, but like, I feel like things work the way they're supposed to. And I just feel like they would be punished. Like, you would just be punished if you did that. You know what I mean? And so,
I mean,
and,
I know we talked about cussing, but at the end of it, karma's a bitch.
yeah, no,
Yes.
and here's the other thing. I know people are going to point to tanking teams, and that does frustrate me, right? Like, because teams do, we've seen the Pistons do this in the last couple of years. Now, I do not think they did this year. There's some other means to that. Like, your number one goal isn't winning whenever you're the Detroit Pistons and you get to the last 20, 30 games of the season. It is like, hey, is Jared Rhoden actually an NBA player? Can Stanley Amude play? Let's give James Wiseman some more minutes to figure out whether we should give him a contract or not. So your focus and your intention shifts whenever you're one of those teams. So I get frustrated by that as well. But when you're in this competitive of a situation in the play-in tournament, it was just asinine to me, to people to even think that that was a real option.
Absolutely.
If you want to win it all, you got to make it through everybody anyways.
Yes.
Right?
Well, here's what I'll say. I'm a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Sorry for anybody who's not or hates them. Oh, great reaction by Alex. Here's the thing. I've watched them win 3 Super Bowls. This year's was the most rewarding by far as a Chiefs fan, for no other reason than they went on the road. They went on the road, or well, the first one at home, and then went on the road, and they just beat these historically good Ravens team and historically good 49ers defense and all of this stuff. And point being is, it was rewarding because they did it against these odds and against, the toughest possible competition. It's by far the most rewarding one as a fan. Sorry, Alex.
No, I mean, you see the flag in the back. I just hearing the word Chiefs just kind of sent me for a second.
Bryce Simon, our guest, thank you so much for joining us on ACL. I know we got to get you out of here, but I got to ask you what honestly might be the hottest question in NBA circles right now. Who's your MVP?
Jokic. I'll give you my
that simple.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jokic is it. I know some people have Luka. I think the bigger debate is Luka versus SGA for 2. Is what I feel like. I have Jokic. I just, here's the thing. At the end of the day, I think he's the best player in the world. And so, I mean, you can come down to different things and regular season, this season, all of those different things. I just think the way he manipulates the game, maybe the counting stats aren't as good. I don't think he cared about the counting stats at the end of the day. I watched him play the Pistons and purposely not score and go rack up 15 assists. I think he's playing at a step ahead of essentially everybody and maybe just a millisecond ahead of Luka. Luka's been incredible. SGA's been incredible. Giannis, and then I had Jason Tatum as my 5th person on my first team All-NBA, with all due respect to Jalen Brunson, who I think has a real argument as well.
Bryce Simon, the man, the myth, the legend. Thank you so very much
Thank you, man.
for joining us here on ACL.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much.
Next time I'll have some hockey questions for you.
I can't. I'll study up.
Huge thank you to Bryce for coming on. And now we get into I don't know how I might just have to cut it off and talk about
We're
it
gonna
because
break. We're gonna
as-
break Alex by the end of the show.
well, it's one of those things where the Wings season I haven't accepted that it's done. Especially like it winning that game against Montreal. For those who didn't see, the Wings won the last 3 games, and all we needed was the Flyers to beat the Capitals, and we would be in the playoffs. That did not happen. It was funny because the second to last game, so the last Wings home game, they were down 4-2. And I got up and I was like, I'm done. Season's over. I'm done. I'm not watching. And it was one of those classic, and our listeners will soon learn that I am the biggest superstition, like the biggest believer in superstition, to where, again, I get up and leave, the Wings come back and win. With 10 minutes left to go, I turned the game off in the last game. Bless you. And
Thank you.
I was like, oh, and I find out that we come back and win. And then I was like, shit, there's another score at play. Capitals unfortunately came out and won. And here's my biggest issue. Yes, there was a shot, and yes, we won when we needed to, sort of, at the end there, but you cannot go on a 7-game streak without a point and expect to make the playoffs. You cannot have massive collapse like that in any sport. You can't have as big of defensive collapses. And it's one of those funny things where even seeing all of these different quotes like Mo Sider and Lucas Raymond talking about how, they want to stay here and they're dedicated to this team. DeBrincat talking about, how they want to have Patty Kane back. Even with that, I still haven't accepted that the season's over. And I know once playoffs start this weekend, that's when it's going to hit me that this season's done. And I'm just going to be even more sad about it than I am now. But I think there's probably a reason my housemates and people around me have just kind of stayed away from mentioning the Red Wings past days.
We started the show talking the Tigers, who have not looked pretty the last couple of weeks here, and now we're on to the Red Wings. So we're sort of pressing all of Alex's buttons. Tied at 91 points with the Capitals ended the Red Wings season. They're officially eliminated here at the end of the season. They actually ended with one more win, 41-40 over the Capitals. But thoughts overall on the season? Obviously, you mentioned a little bit of that patch collapse there.
Honestly, before I get there, you know who I blame for all of this?
I'd love to know. The Lions,
Because
they took the wins from them.
Because no. Because they gave us hope. They gave us hope in Detroit sports again. And it was easier when you didn't have the expectations.
For the longest time, what Detroit sports has done for me, obviously both of us grew up area kids watching and suffering with these teams. A lot of it was exactly that. And that's what the Lions did to me for so long, was everyone sort of wrote off the Lions and the Pistons a little bit too, on these runs where it was, oh, they're terrible. Oh, you really watch. And there'd be kids at school in Detroit area schools being like, oh yeah, you even watch the Lions like they're terrible. It'd be the write-off joke for kids who didn't actually watch sports. But they were always just good enough to be like, we're going to slide into that wild card. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And they never did. It was always just enough to torture your fans. The longest time where the Pistons were like, we're going to slide in and be the 8 seed. You were either the 8 seed and you got murdered by the Bucks or the Cavs, or you slid right up at the 10 or 9 seed. Same thing with the Lions getting killed by Rodgers in fourth quarters. And it seems now that Alex feels that it's true. The Red Wings did the same thing to us this season. At least we got some wins in football season. You can't blame the Lions. They're the only wins we've had this year.
I don't know. I'm going to, because they gave me hope. And it's not like one of those things where I still do believe in the Yzer plan. I think Steve Yzerman is going to be one of the best things that's happened to this franchise from an executive standpoint. He was one of the best things that's happened to the franchise from a player standpoint years ago. He will be one of the best things that's happened from an executive standpoint. I just think he's got to find defense. the depth at defense has been terrible. If I see Jeff Petrie on the ice next year in that third D line spot, I'm going to lose my shit. It's just something's got to pick up. The offense was good as could be expected. I think it was I think offense met expectations, but you need defense, and quite frankly, you need a goalie, because it just the switching back and forth where Lyon would get hot, then he would get cold, then Reimer would come in and get hot, then he'd get cold, and then Husso, who just didn't even fucking play. So I debated whether or not to add this as a segment today, because I didn't know if I was actually ready to talk about the wing season being done. And yes, that's really dramatic and probably stupid, and I look like a fool right now. That's where we are right now. It's funny. One of my housemates was like, and here goes Alex's entire life because the Wings lost. I was like, you know what? Kinda, a little bit. So
I know it's early in the playoffs, of course, haven't even started yet, and let alone the off season, but super quick glance ahead for Wings fans. Do you feel like the draft or free agency or a little bit of both? How are we filling that defensive spot, or the defensive spots, period?
I'll be honest. I can't. I don't even know yet. I haven't gotten there. Ask me next week. I was
time to
I was still focused on the trade deadline. I wanted Noah Hannafin so bad, and obviously that didn't happen. I'm gonna need a hiatus for a second, then we can get into it. This really is becoming an Alex therapy session, so I apologize for that, but I don't know. I will say, if I had to make my pick, it's not really pick of the week because it'll be more than a week, but I'm taking Toronto over Boston in that first round. I don't think, obviously Boston's got a good team, but I think this is finally Toronto's year. And yes, every year someone has said that and they choke. No one's stopping Austin Matthews. They're just not going to.
We need to do a better job of peppering our picks of the week throughout the show, because we did make Bryce make some picks of the week. Not a betting man, but we appreciate him humoring us. Alex just gave you his. I've got sort of a unique one, only because I just placed this bet last night. We talked with Bryce about how good that Mavs Clippers first round series maybe isn't going to be, but we hope that it will be. You've got, or I've got, that going to 7 games. LA versus Dallas in the West in the first round is plus 230 to go to 7 games. I like that. If you can find an option, I think there's one on FanDuel, I'll have to check, for it to go to 6 or more games. Obviously, you'd get much better odds. But if 6 or more games is an option, I think this is going to be an awesome series. Dallas versus LA.
For someone to gamble responsibly. If you have an issue, please call the gambling hotline.
That's the man.
Right there. Throw that in there.
1-800-GAMBLER?
I believe so. Last I checked.
I hope so, if we're pointing people that way. Thank you
I
very
really
much.
Imagine we've been saying that since someone tries to call on it.
I hope not. Thank you very much for joining us once again on ACL, the ligament that always tears. It'll be torn for a while. Alex Deimel, Christian Peck-Dimit saying goodbye until next week.